Hello. Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, this webinar starts in the next minute. So we'd like
You
to,
say?
Samuel, this webinar starts now, so you have to be silent.
Okay, sir.
So we'd like to introduce the presenter, Mr. Larry Mojola, the MD of Fillmore Facilities Management Limited in Lagos. He'll be taking us through our second webinar for this year, and he'll be discussing about how we can enhance the built environment with the facilities management strategy. So I'm just going to run through his profile while he take over the main session. Then we have the opportunity of asking questions after his webinar. Then I'd like to say this, that the webinar presentation slides will be available for people to download on our site later on, especially the video, because this webinar is being recorded. So I said earlier on, we have the opportunity of asking questions posed in those throughout the webinar. The recorded webinar will also be available online. We appreciate your full participation. Then we'd like to say thank you to our big sponsors. That's BIFM Nigeria, Nigerian Info, Fillmore Facilities Management, and Tessera E-Consulting. We appreciate all of you for making this possible to create more awareness of facilities management in Nigeria. Yes, Mr. Lami Mojola is the Managing Director of Fillmore Facilities Management Limited in Nigeria. He has a BSc degree in Estate Management from Afem Awolowo University Limited and a Master's degree in Facilities Management from Elliot White University, Edinburgh in the UK. He has several certifications in project management, NEBOSH, which is the arm of operational safety, and several competencies from BIFM from level 2 to level 7. That's why he's a certified member of BIFM. He's also currently doing an MBA in facilities management at Sheffield Business UK, which he'll be sharing most of all his experiences and knowledge with us today. From here, he started his career at Crown Realities PLC as a facility officer before he now proceeded for his NYC program with Central Bank of Nigeria. Later, which he moved to GTB in 2012 as an ET and rose up to position of a banking officer within the space of 2 years. And you see his experience, he has moved from the banking system, manufacturing industry to the real estate industry. So his experience, he has touched almost virtually every industry in the country, both local and abroad. So he has a lot to share with us. I want us to sit back, enjoy, and get our pens and papers to jot down one or two ideas that we'll get from his world of experience. And don't forget to ask questions where necessary at the end of the presentation. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Larry Mojola, who is going to take us through this presentation. There you go, sir.
Thank you very much, Olumide. Most appreciated. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Larry Mojola, as Mr. Aino has said. Today we'll be briefly looking at what strategy is. We'll be defining and clarifying what we mean by strategy. A lot of people say strategy. What does this mean? What does this strategy mean? So as part of this, we'll be looking at some of the learning objectives. We'll be clarifying the difference between planning and strategy. particularly looking at the facility management industry. We'll provide facility management students and practitioners the platform to understand that before they get into any project, they need to have a clearly defined plan and strategy. We'll also share some practical and theoretical knowledge on the relationship between good strategy and how it adds value to the built environment. Just before I go into the main crux of the matter, I'll just quickly talk about the Battle of Trafalgar, which took place on the 23rd of October, 1806. At this battle, we had the English fighting against the French and the Spanish. The French and the Spanish were, at that time, they had the strongest fleet, naval fleet in the world. And each of them could have taken out the English fleet. So you can imagine the combination of the two of them fighting the English fleet. It was almost like a no battle, a no-brainer. But the English won. Why did they win? Because they had a clear strategy. With the element of surprise and their battle formation, they won. So this has also been proven across time in several battles that once you have a strategy, your chances of winning your battle is much better. So we can understand the reason why we keep emphasizing strategy, the need for a clear and concise strategy. So part of what we'll be talking about today would be what exactly is the strategy, what is the importance of strategy, what is the nature of strategic decisions, and the levels of strategy that is required. Now, as you are all aware, in the business world, there's a lot of jargon when it comes to strategy. Some people will say strategy is long-term. Some will say it's the right fit. Some will say it's capabilities. You hear a lot of different words, different jargons. Some will say it's positioning. Some will say it's change. Some will say it's complexity. But basically, what does strategy mean to you? Some gurus of management, Alfred Chandler in 1963 defined it as the determination of long-run goals and the objectives of an enterprise and the adoption of courses of action and the allocation of resources necessary for carrying out these goals. Yes, it's a bit complicated. Michael Porter, who is a more modern management guru, defines strategy as being different. He focuses on competitive strategy, saying it's a mix of activities, a different set of activities to deliver a unique mix of value. Henry Mintzberg in 2007 says strategy is a pattern in a stream of decisions. These definitions are all from renowned gurus. But I find strategy very simple. Johnson in 2014, a modern day management guru, defines strategy simply as a long-term direction of an organization. So if we look at it then, are we saying that strategy cannot be in the short term? Can we say it's strictly long term? I don't think so. So I think we can actually critique this definition and say, yes, it might be long term, but again, strategy is short term as well as middle on the mid run. Again, what's your definition of long term? In some economies, they'll say long term is 5 to 10 years. Looking at Nigeria, I'm sure everyone listening would agree with me that long term in Nigeria is a year or even shorter than a year. It could even be 6 months. So how does strategy work? We'll define and try and hone down on three main horizons. One is as a business. So we're going to be thinking about strategy as business owners now. So let's say, for example, we're the owners of a facility management company. What does strategy mean to us? How can we use strategy to enhance our business? The three ways we can use strategy is using what we call the three horizons. One is extending and defending your core business. Your core business is facility management. How can you extend and defend your business from other people, from quacks in getting into your business? The second is how to build emerging businesses. So from the existing business that you have, what other forms of business activities can you also carry out that are related to what you're currently doing? The third is to now looking at these options and making them viable. It's not all the options that are viable. So you now also look at the ones that are viable and invest in them, and then you can then start deploying these options as an additional income stream. So those are the three basic horizons for strategy. But how is strategy formed? How is it formulated? Some will say it's informal, they'll say it's scattered, they'll say it's emergent because it could be top down or it could be bottom up. Some will say strategy is formal, where you have to sit in a strategic session with top management and then define what strategy means for your organization, have your action points, define your mission, your vision, and then work your strategy. So it's really a mix. It depends on your type of organization and what you want. It could be formal, it could be emergent, but again, what matters most is having some form of strategic plan. Again, strategy can be defined in terms of levels, where you have the corporate level, which is senior management, board level. You have the business level, which is the mid-level managers and senior officers, as well as the operational level. The operational level are the guys that are actually getting the job done, the guys that are boots on the ground and rolling up their sleeves and getting the job done. Now, these three levels of strategy are very important, and I'll explain why they're important. At the corporate level, there has to be some form of determination of the overall scope of the organization. What are we doing? It's usually, they say the 5 whys: why, which, what. You have to run through all these whys. That why are we in business? What are we meant to be doing? Which markets are we going to play in? So there has to be some form of determination of overall scope of the organization. This then trickles down to meeting the expectations of stakeholders. Examples of decisions at the corporate level would be: what businesses are we going to play in? What markets are we going to play in? What could we possibly acquire new businesses if, say, for example, there's a company that is a strong FM company in consultancy and you're an operations company? Could it be that rather than having a fresh company created from start, could you look at the possibilities of acquiring that FM consultancy? Other examples of strategy will be: what geographical markets do we want to play in? Are we looking at the southwest, south-south? Are we looking at exploring opportunities in the north, the northeast, or even West Africa, or even the whole of Africa, or do we want to go global? Again, we'll be looking at the portfolio of businesses. What kind of businesses are we looking at? Are we looking at businesses within the public sector or the private sector, or a mix of the two? So these are the kind of decisions that will be taken at the corporate levels. They're very high level decisions that flow down or trickle down through the organization. At the business level, which is the second level, it will be more of how to compete. So it's the second level where we'll be looking at: how do we provide best-in-class services? How do we provide value? What do we term as value? What are our value-added propositions? What is our unique selling proposition? What makes us distinct from our competitors? What is our competitive advantage? These are the kind of questions that will be asked at the business level, because these are smaller operational levels where the strategy is tailor-made to what you're trying to resolve. Part of the kind of other examples that will be coming out at this level will be: how do we respond to competitors? How do we respond to changes in the market? Also, we'll be looking at service delivery. How do we introduce new services? What new services should we introduce? How do we listen to our clients and sense that these are the services that are required? These are the kind of questions that you need to answer at the business level. And then obviously, last but not the least, the operational level, which gives you the bread and the butter. you'll be looking at how the different parts of the organization operate. There will be a lot more emphasis on human resource planning, processes, what solutions are you using, what software solutions are you using, what level of training or skill adequacy do your personnel have. So it's more down to earth in terms of the functions of the organization, where you're looking at HR, you're looking at finance, you're looking at exactly what you need to do to get the job done. If I were to relate this with FM, we'll be looking at things like, say for example, energy management. How do we reduce our energy usage? What do we do? Do we shut down at certain periods of the day to reduce the cost of diesel, to reduce the cost of energy? Do we work smartly where not everybody needs to come to the office, so you can have small office spaces? These are the kind of decisions that you'll be looking at in terms of energy management, operational strategy. Again, we'll be looking at things like efficient space utilization. The space that you have, do you need as much space to carry out your tasks? What kind of solutions or software do you need such that you can operate a mobile platform, as against having people in the office sitting there and spending more money on your cost of rental as well as cost of utilities? So these are the kind of things that will start coming down at the operational level. Other areas of operational strategy would be resource management. How many people do you need to deliver a task? Can you deliver this task without people? Can it be automated? If it can't be automated, then what are the manning levels required? If it's a remote location, how do you manage your remote sites without having to deploy many resources? I mean, these are all the kind of things that will be looked at in terms of operational strategy. Cost cutting is another major one for operational managers. How do you create value for your clients? How do you ensure that the work is done the right way the first time without having to do repeat work over and over and again? So these are the kind of things that will be coming out at the operational level. So summarizing these levels of strategy, we can say then that strategy is not really simple. It is not something that you will just say, I've got the strategy, it's going to work. 8 out of 10 times it does not work like that. Strategy is pretty complex. So it means that it has to be carefully and sensitively managed. There has to be some level of experience, there has to be some level of knowledge as to what you want to do to say you've got the right strategy. Again, strategy is what a lot of people call a wicked problem, because it's a problem, but it's a wicked problem because you're trying to solve a problem. But if you don't get your strategy right, you could create more problems from trying to solve a problem. So it's not a very simple thing at all. It's pretty complicated. But then again, that's where if you have skills in strategy and strategic management, then you can mitigate against some of these complexities. Strategy involves internal and external stakeholders, and the boundaries are limitless. So you're dealing with service providers, you're dealing with clients, and the strategy for each client is different to the other. So the way you'll deal with the multinational clients will be different from dealing with the local conglomerate, or just dealing with the sole a single company that has a sole proprietorship. Your strategy has to change. Same way, if you're dealing in the public sector, your strategy has to be different from if you were carrying out business in the private sector. So what we now want to look at is strategy for a small and medium facility management company. Facilities management, as we all know, is a growing cost of discipline where we're meant to be the ones taking the lead in managing our environment. How do we manage the space where we operate? Residential, industrial, commercial, all these are spaces that translate to money. As we've seen, if we look at Nigeria as an example, there's been so much change in the last, say, 18 to 24 months. in terms of what has been happening in the market. The recession has hit. We're still right in the middle of it. We're trying to come out of it. So there's been a lot of changes in the environment. A lot of companies have been exposed and they've been vulnerable to these changes, such that a lot of companies that are small and medium have not survived. The companies that have survived are companies that were able to some extent envisage that there were going to be challenges with the economy, and they took the right steps to guard against collapse, which again goes back to strategy. So going forward, part of what a small and medium FM organization needs to understand is their purpose. Why are they in business? Once you understand why you're in business, you will be able to make strategic choices that may be narrower. For example, you may necessarily not need to have the numbers that you have in your company currently. So you'll be looking at reduction, getting lean and efficient. You probably might start looking at partnerships, strategic partnerships with other FM companies. So if your skill sets, your core competences is delivering soft services, which are cleaning, fumigation, gardening, and you have another company that has competencies in hard FM, the engineering bits, you could have a strategic partnership such that at the end of the day, you are both reducing your overheads and you're minimizing your costs and maximizing your profits. So those are the kind of strategies that a small and medium scale FM business will have. This is different from if you were a multinational FM organization where your positioning in the global marketplace will be very important. You'll be looking at different geographical areas to serve, and it's important to maintain your brand across these geographical areas. Again, it may be that each geographical location might need separate analysis because of the cultural issues. For example, it is hot here in Africa. So one of the problems that you would have as an FM is it's too hot. My ACs are not working. I'm hot, I'm stuffy, I'm very uncomfortable. But on the other side of the world, it's too cold. So it's a case of my heaters are not working. And as a global FM, you need to realize that your strategy has to be different. Operational strategy has to be different. Your cultural strategy also has to be different. If you were operating an FM in Africa, it's culturally is very different from the Middle East. Again, the cultural differences are very different to the Western nations. And your approach has to change depending on the culture of these areas that you're operating. So it's quite complex, and it shouldn't just be seen as something that you close your eyes to and say, let us see how it plays out. It doesn't work that way. Again, if you're a facility management company that specializes in the public sector, the whole strategy plan will be different again. We all know the way the public sector is, it's slower to respond, and the struggle on quality and service issues. So as an FM practitioner, your strategy will vary depending on the market or the sector that you operate. So let's look at strategy in terms of even trying to define what it means. Strategy could be looked at in terms of 5 main areas. One is a mission, the mission of your organization. What's your overriding purpose? What are your goals? What businesses are we in? What businesses do we want to play in? You need to clearly define what your mission is. Number 2 is your vision. Your vision is what you aspire to do, where you see yourself, your desired future state, your goals and objectives. So in the vision, what you'll be asking is, what do we want to achieve? As against your mission is, what business are we in? So you need to know what your mission is first. And then once you understand what your mission is, the next step is, what is your vision? And the third thing is then your objectives. These are more precise. They're measurable, they're quantifiable, they're specific, they are SMART. These are goals that you will specify over a period of time. And the kind of questions that you'd be asking will be, what do we have to achieve in the coming period? So there is an element of time. It is not open bound. So we will say that as an FM practitioner, as an FM organization, this is what we want to achieve in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months. It's very, very specific. Another is the scope. You need to clearly itemize or identify your scope of activities. How diverse is your customer base? What are your strengths in terms of your geographical spread? What sorts of integration do you envisage? Vertical integration or horizontal integration? Are you looking at partnerships, subcontracting, etc.? These are all the kind of questions that you'll be looking at under your scope. Last but not the least is your advantage. I'd mentioned this earlier, that every single organization needs to be different from the other. This is what makes you different. This is what they call your unique selling proposition, your USP. So your objectives will be what sets us apart from the competitor, what makes us different from the other FM company. It's very, very important for you to clearly identify these 5 main statements and actually write them down. Because once you then do that, what you then have is a strategic statement. And why are these strategic statements important? One, if you're a startup organization, you need to be able to persuade or convince investors of the viability of your business. 2, if you've already started your organization, at some point you need to consolidate, you need to increase market share. These strategic statements are important for investors that want to buy in equity into your organization. Public sector, you need to reassure your external clients. You need to look at the people that are funding you, your banks, your financial institutions. You need to assure the regulators that your priorities are the right ones. And lastly, the voluntary sector, which we can term as the educational sector, which is basically inspiring volunteers and donors, as well as getting people on board to spread the awareness of the sector that you're in. So having discussed what strategy is, let's try and talk about what strategic management is. Strategic management simply is understanding the strategic position of your organization, making strategic choices for the future, and managing strategy in action. So under strategic management, you'd be looking at the 3 key points. One is position. Where are you? What is your strategic position in the market? What kind of organizational culture do you have? What are your capabilities? What environment are you operating in? What is your purpose as an organization? The other is your strategic choices. Are you looking at the corporate markets? Are you a company that is driven by innovation? Would you be looking at acquisitions and alliances? Are you looking at international businesses? And the third is strategy in action, where you're basically looking at your internal processes. How do we ensure that our processes are structured such that we're delivering on our strategic position? So to summarize strategic management, there are 14 fundamental questions, which I'll just quickly run through. What are your environmental opportunities and threats? What are your strengths and weaknesses? We're talking about your SWOT here. What is the basic purpose of your organization? What kind of culture does your organization have to shape your strategy? What businesses do you need to include in your portfolio? How should your business units be structured? How do you function internally as an organization? Are you an innovating organization or you're a copying organization? Should your organization go alone or do you need to form strategic partnerships? Who should do what in your organization? What kind of systems and structures are required in your organization? So these are the 14 main questions you need to ask in order to form a strategic management decision. So in summary, what we're saying here is, where are you now? Where do you want to go? How are you going to get there? And finally, how will you know when you have arrived? It sounds easy, but most organizations have lost their way. Very good. All right. So in summary, it's very important for us as individuals as well as corporate organizations to understand what strategy is, because this is what determines what we want to do. I'm open for any questions or contributions at this point. Hello? Questions?
Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the presentation by Mr. Larry Mojola. Okay, we'll be entertaining questions now. If you have any question, please could you just ask now for the next few minutes. Or if you can't, if your audio is not working, your microphone, you could just send a chat and send a question to us. We'll be glad to answer all your questions. While we're waiting for that, again, we want to appreciate all our sponsors for today's webinar. This is the second webinar we're having in the month of February. We want to appreciate IFMA Abuja chapter, BIFM Nigeria, Nigerian Info 95.1 Abuja, Fumo Facilities Management, and then Tessera E-Consulting. Thank you so much for making this possible to create more awareness of facilities management in Nigeria. And we hope that with knowledge shared, knowledge gained from the other end, we'll be able to influence the way people work, live, and play in Nigeria. The built environment will be more enhanced with appropriate strategy, and we'll ensure that we'll sustain the value, even improving it, increasing it, so that we don't reduce, we don't go below our baseline of value proposition. Still waiting for a question from Mr. Larry Mojola so that I can just take them once. At least you can have something for lunch today as a learning curve for our journey through. Any questions?
Yes, there's a question here from me.
Okay.
My name is Edmond.
Okay, sir.
And I would like to ask
Larry can hear
a
you.
question.
Hello, sir.
Can you hear me?
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Hello?
Good afternoon. Hello?
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Okay, what's your
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I want to. Hello, good afternoon.
I can hear you, sir. Please, what's your question?
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
I can hear you loud and clear. What's your question?
Yes, my name is Edmond, and I want to ask a question in respect to strategy and FM management in Nigeria.
Okay. Please go ahead. Go ahead, please. Ask the question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
What's
my question goes this way. In Nigeria, I've discovered that most of the FM strategic and practitioner always focus on the urban centers. Is
Hello? Hello, I've lost you. Hello? Your question was quite interesting, but I didn't get it fully. Hello, are you there? Hello, Mr. Edmond. Can you chat? Can you send your question through a chat box? Mr. Edmond, you were asking a question about urban areas, but you didn't complete it. Can you send your question through the chat messenger, please? Thank you. Hello?
Yeah, I want that. It's that.
Hello, Mr. Edmond. Thank you. I just got your question. It says here, what can we do to ensure that a holistic approach is taken to consideration for rural areas? What I understand by this question is, it seems that strategic FM is largely concentrated on the urban areas, the cities and the towns. Um, but your question is, what can be done to ensure that the rural areas have some level of strategic FM as well as operational delivery? To be very honest, I think that because FM is relatively new, it's a relatively new profession. Um, the flow of knowledge is still largely concentrated around the urban centers, mainly because of the infrastructure that is available within the urban centers and the level of complexity that these facilities require in terms of maintenance or strategy. And in the villages or in the rural areas, the lifestyles are still very sedentary. They're very basic. As such, not that much of FM is required. Having said that, um, even in the rural areas, there's some very basic practices that are carried out. Um, and that's why if you go to some of the rural areas where you find huts and traditional old houses, you will find out that a lot of them have largely been maintained quite well. Um, Reason is because they understand that they will not have these assets depreciating, and they need to put in the minimal investment to ensure that these assets are maintained. Um, Thinking about how to collaborate with rural areas, it's something that hasn't been done, but again, it doesn't mean it can't be done. And some of the ways it can be done will be working very closely with the community chiefs, the rural traditional leaders, as well as the youth in the environment to understand the importance of FM. If this is done, then we can then bridge the gap between what is happening in urban areas and cascade this down to the rural areas. I hope I've been able to answer your question in some form.
And then go. Yeah. Yes, to an extent. Thank you, sir.
I think we're good, Abby.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Larry. Thank you, Edmond, for your question. That was a fantastic question, and I believe you've gotten the appropriate answer for that question. So we'll be expecting more questions before we close this webinar. If you can't hear or reach us, you can just send a chat, or you have the opportunity of sending us email at hi@fmtalk360.com. Like we said, this webinar is available for you to download. It will be available for you to download from our website. In fact, it will be sent to you, your email address, the email address you use in registering for this website so that you can do as you wish. Yes, Mohammed, I got your mail, your chat now, that the video, it seems, is affecting the streaming. Our advice that if you can just switch off our webcam, every one of us can, anyone that is under the sound of my voice can just off the webinar so that we have like a free flow for the network. So Mohammed, do you have any question to ask? Okay, we're still waiting for any question. If you have any question, please send your questions or send to our email address, our contact details, and we'll be very, very glad to respond appropriately. We'd also like to thank Mr. Larry Modula again, the MD of Fillmore Facilities Management, for taking time out of his busy schedule to take us through this strategy and how it can enhance the built environment. We are very, very glad to have you back, to have you do this presentation for us. We are so grateful. Okay, we're running along, but before we close, if you still have questions, we still have some few minutes left. We'll still be able to entertain your question. I think someone's trying to ask a question here, but since it's can't really, you can send a chat, you can just do us a chat, we'll be glad to get your questions. Again, you can check our blog for articles, enlightening articles. You can just register your email addresses to receive hot, incisive, educative articles on a daily basis via your email address, where you can learn about trending issues in facilities management. You can meet with top people in the industry that can mentor you through. If you are still in school or you have passion or interest for facilities management, we'll be glad to help and support you in your knowledge development. So our next webinar is going to take place February 27th. That will be next week. And good enough, the presenter is the well-renowned facility management guru, not just in Nigeria, in Africa, even in Europe, and that's Dr. M.K. Balogun. He's the Managing Director of Global Facilities and Property Management Limited. You'll be discussing some unique issues with us in facilities management. It will be breaking facility management down into levels of understanding and clarity with real life examples. So register on our blog to get prepared for him. It's just going to be a 1 hour lunchtime. Just take your time to listen to the experts in facilities management. So we're running along. Any questions? We are still waiting for more questions from your end for Mr. Larry Modula to be able to attend to them. Then you can follow us up through social media platform, our LinkedIn, our Twitter handle, our Facebook, still FM Talk 360, LinkedIn FM Talk 360, to get more info, to know what is trending in facilities management and how we can propagate or campaign for professionalism in facilities management so that we can chase the quacks away from this business in Nigeria. Okay, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone. I can see their names here: Ademola, Anthony, Daniel, Edmond, Georgia, Kende, Adeomi, Muhammad, Bumi, Samuel. We appreciate you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Thank you so much. And we also wish to thank our presenter, Mr. Larry Mojola, the MD, Fimo Facilities Management Limited, Lagos, and also our sponsors, IFMA Abuja Chapter, BIFM Nigeria, Fimo Facilities Management Limited, Nigeria Info 95.1, and also Tessera e-Consulting. Thank you so much for interest in FM Talk 360. Thank you for partnering with us. Thank you for your support. We hope that you'll be there next time. We'll be having our last webinar for February next week with Dr. MKO Balogun. Thank you so much and God bless.